The first time I saw Zion Williamson was when my son and my son, who's my talking ball partner, Jack, if you haven't figured that one out yet, my wife and I were taking a trip to Niagara Falls. We had been awaiting the release of the 2018 Duke Blue Devils schedule and noticed that they were playing a series of exhibition games in Canada. With highly touted recruits, which included R.J. Barrett, who hails from Toronto, we checked the schedule and calculated that we could go and watch the Blue Devils in this exhibition game near the city of Toronto. We were among the many who had seen Zion's highlight reels, but we just had to see him live. It's just one of those things you do as a Duke fan. While the evening belonged to RJ, we were just 8 rows off the floor and saw what everyone had been writing about. A 260-pound incoming freshman whose speed, burst of energy, and jumping ability defied the imagination. How could someone of this size do what he could while wearing a smile of sheer joy? Could this be a once-in-a-generation star? On the way back to the hotel, we could not contain our glee that Zion would be a Dookie and we would get to watch him. Though we knew he was going to be a one and done, we had one season to see just what Zion could do. And Zion did not disappoint. His seismic dunks and a block shot that is seared in our memories. He had raced to the corner of the court to seemingly harass a three-point shot until his speed and leaping ability timed the block to be able to get to it as it had already left the shooter's hand. It just seemed impossible that that's what he had done. He blocked the shot. Did we just see that? Yes, there would be spectacular 360 dunks and incredible agility bringing the ball up the court, showing the point guard he once was. But for me, no Zion play could oust the memory of the block. His brief time at Duke never left us disappointed, but it included a moment that I think is pivotal to his career: the Obama popped sneaker. With so many Duke moments packed into a short stay, the anticipation and build-up to the Duke-UNC game, which included President Obama courtside, was incredible. No, we were not in Cameron, but our excitement level was no less diminished by being a fan and watching on TV. Game time. Jump ball. 36 seconds into the game. Zion's sneaker blew out. He was on the floor, and he was holding his right knee, and that was it. It took 36 seconds, but it seemed something had changed. Look, I'm no doctor, and I do not have the benefit of interviewing Zion for this broadcast, but for me, there is pre- and post-sneaker Zion. Prior to that incident, Zion had had no major injuries. Just a jammed thumb in the McDonald's All-America game as a high school senior. So let's go back in time so that you fully understand the moment that took place in front of President Obama. Zion was named by his mom for the biblical Mount Zion, and she said he was destined for greatness. Pretty good call at birth. He grew up and played ball in South Carolina, which, by the way, he was Clemson's to lose. His freshman year, he averaged 24.4 points, 9.4 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 3.3 steals, and 3 block shots a game. The numbers only got better throughout his high school career. As those numbers climbed, you had to ask, who averages those numbers? He was magical on both ends of the court. His highlight reels went viral, and the rapper Drake wore his jersey. Along with RJ and Cam, the top 3 prospects in the high school class all were at Duke. Was it a championship year? One shining moment dominated by Duke? Yes, his numbers were great, but his smile and his bounce, literally, I mean his bounce, watch the videos like a pogo stick, made watching him sheer joy. Then, on February 20th, 2019, just 36 seconds into the first meeting with UNC, his size 15 Nike sneaker went pop. 36 seconds, pop. The next day, Nike stock also went pop, losing $1.1 billion in value. Zion would be diagnosed with a grade 1 knee sprain and miss 6 regular season games. Remember, it's only about 30 games that you get to see him in, and we lost 6 of them. It seemed like an eternity. You'd be right to say when he came back, his numbers were still special. On March 14th in the ACC tourney, he would score 29 points with 14 rebounds and 5 blocks. Next day, his 31 points helped Duke beat rival UNC, yes, the same UNC, by 1 point. And then they won the ACC tourney, and Zion was MVP, and all was good in the world. Duke would make it to the Elite 8 during March Madness, but the highly touted trio lost to Michigan State, one of Coach Izzo's most satisfying wins. There would be no one shining moment, and that would be the end of his college career. He blazed across the sky, blocked by clouds, only once when the sneaker went pop, and he sat out 6 games. Zion would go on to be the 2019 number 1 draft pick by the New Orleans Pelicans. That's just the way it goes for number 1 picks. Help a failing NBA team and probably not wind up in a major market city. Signed on July 1, he tore his meniscus on October 13th. Signed on July 1. In preseason, he tore his meniscus of his first year. I hate to harp on the sneaker, but for me, it would portend things to come. He would not make his professional debut until 3 months later. On January 22nd, 2020, he played just 18 minutes in his comeback game, scoring 17 consecutive points in 3 minutes and 8 seconds. He's back! He had many firsts that year, and despite the injury, he wound up being named to the NBA All-Rookie team. But he never had to sit 3 months with a knee injury. It would be another first. Next year, he would be selected to the All-Star game. By all accounts, Zion's star was back on track for NBA greatness, except in the offseason, he fractured his foot, had surgery, and then through a prolonged series of team announcements suggesting that we'd get to see him in 6 weeks or a month, and then little by little, he wound up sitting out the whole season. Another first for Zion. On July 6, 2022, the Pelicans took a big gamble on Zion and signed him to a 5-year, $193 million contract guaranteed. And on October 4th, he made his return from the foot injury. That is, till the end of the year. It appeared that the Pelicans' gamble was going to pay off. The sparkle had returned. But on January 2nd, 2023, he was sidelined with a hamstring injury. Multiple announcements later again by Pelicans management, it would turn out that Zion was going to miss the entire rest of the season. He would not return to play until November 29th, 2023. and he recorded 33 points that day. And the Zion Mountain-esque type numbers had returned. On April 16th, he would play in his first postseason playoff game and score 40 points. And yet again, it was his last game, as he was injured at the end of that game, and it would be the end of the season. During these season-ending and long-duration injuries, Zion struggled with weight problems. No less than Shaq and Sir Charles would talk about it. When he showed up to sit on the bench, he was taunted by fans for being overweight. Look, these two guys, Shaq and Barkley, know a bit about being a little on the chunky side, and they were claiming he was well over 300 pounds. Over his career, there were two long stories in the New York Times about how he rehabbed his injuries and was ready to once again shine. The articles were incredibly uplifting. The story of a comeback, ready to go, only to be defeated again by injury. I clipped the end of the one at the start of this season, the 2024 season. The article ended with, after reflecting on all the setbacks, trust issues, and self-proclaimed mistakes, Williamson was asked what fans should expect from him heading into his 6th NBA season, which, by the way, was enough of a career for David Aldridge's new book on the 100 best NBA players of all time. He picks, as one of them, Jason Tatum, who had as long a career as Zion. So you might think, had he not been injured, would Zion have been in the book? Zion said, "How can I say this the right way? I'm out for straight vengeance. Not against any particular person, just for myself." So that brings us to the beginning of the 24-25 season. And as of December 29th, the date of this recording, Zion had played in only 6 games. And then he hurt his hamstring, and he had been sidelined once again. Vengeance would have to wait. Rumors have steadily increased that New Orleans has now given up on building their team around him. There's talk about a trade to Portland. As an observer and an unabashed fan of Duke basketball, I want the pre-Obama sneaker Zion, the one who showed up to play the game with sheer joy, gravity-defying jumping ability for a 260-pounder, and the potential to be one of the great ones. In Aldridge's book, he writes about another top 100, Bernard King. King was told by 3 doctors after he tore his meniscus that he would never play again and that he needed surgery just to walk. He became, through grit, the first NBA player to come back from an injury of that magnitude to then go on and play in one more All-Star game. It wasn't easy, and he had to endure a lot to get there, but get there he did. So here's wishing Zion could go speak to Bernard King. After all, Larry Bird said that King was the best scorer I've ever seen or played against. It takes a lot to get to the top of the mountain. It took a lot to get to that moment of playing before President Obama and Cameron. But as we are starting a new year and sports is full of comeback stories, here's hoping that Zion has one more comeback. Not just for his vengeance, but for fans such as me, it would be sheer joy. This is JD for Talking Ball. If you like this, please share it with a friend, subscribe to Talking Ball, or leave a comment. Love your comments on this, as this is my first time trying to do this, and trying to lend a perspective on a Duke player and a moment, maybe not one shining moment, but a moment that may have been pivotal in his career. So, Happy New Year to all of you listeners, and look forward to your comments. Thank you.